Yeah. Hello? Wow. Impressive. Well, in 2012, I attended my first GIN conference in São Paulo, Brazil. That was a great experience. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be back. I'm really happy to be here with you again. My goal here today is to share with you, recently arrived in Panama just 4 months ago. I'm very, very fresh here. But just to share some of the experience I've had with waste management over the past almost 10 years now. And ever since that conference took place in São Paulo 5 years ago, a lot of things happened in my career, in my personal life, but the passion for the topic, the passion for the theme, waste, has never changed. And that's what connects me to Panama right now, or to the topic I want to address today. I'm not an expert on waste management in Panama yet, but working with you guys, that's what I hope, really, that we can come up with solutions that we can implement here that were already implemented all over the world, not only in developed countries, but also very close by in Brazil, which is also within the context of Latin America. So when I arrived, I had the chance of, seeing all the beautiful places that you have. I've been to San Blas, and actually on my second, does anyone know what that is? Contadora. So on my very second weekend in Panama, I went to Contadora, and I realized how beautiful this country is. I'm actually in love. I already feel myself half Panamanian. You're very welcoming. And at the same time, I was thrilled to see, all the nature and the beauties that this country has, but I cannot hide that I was also shocked to see the way that waste is treated in the country. I'm speaking from a context, as I said, from a Latin country, Brazil, not far from here. But I've seen things happening over the past years in Brazil that has dramatically changed the way that waste is treated, or the way, at least waste is seen by the population. And I think we can accomplish some quick wins here in Panama, now that there are many actions going, with the effort of people like you who can really influence behavior. That's not only, when we talk about waste management, it's not only technology, it's not only investment, but it all starts with behavior. And you're going to see some cool examples here. So when I first saw this, this beautiful spot, as I said, I was really impressed. But when I had a close look, I came across the amount of waste that was out there. Not only big PET bottles, not only big packaging, but also the worst type of waste we can find, which is the micro pieces, the micro particles of waste, in this case microplastic, that was, in that day, it was all around the water, or all over the water, or all over the sand. And that's actually the hardest waste for us to treat, because it's already being fragmented. If you pick one big PET bottle, you can easily recycle that. But small pieces, no, simply not. So that's to the level that the country has reached already, that Panama has reached. We have tons, I don't know, maybe millions of tons of waste that are already circulating in the waters, in the sand, and actually on the streets. If you walk around the city, you see waste all over, and that's very unfortunate. It simply doesn't match the reality and the beauty of the country. So just let's quickly start with a quick reflection. What is garbage? Think about garbage for a second. How does it start? Who created it? If you ask nature, or if we ask nature, they would just not give us an answer. There's simply no waste nothing is wasted. Whatever is left from in nature, so we created. It's our fault. And that's the mixture of consumption, and we are experts in consumption, right? More and more. And complex materials. We are proud. We have specialized in creating complex materials. We've moved from what nature used to give us, wood, metal, rocks, to very complex materials. We have packaging now that has 7 to 9 different layers of material. That's just insane. It's really hard to recycle. So at the end, we know the size of the problem. All over the globe, 5 billion tons of waste hits the waters, hit the ground, and are not recycled. That's a lot of waste. And unfortunately, waste that is generated all over the world in developed countries not always end up in landfills or recycled. It ends up in developing markets or undeveloped countries like Africa or South Asia. Latin America, and the disposal is not necessarily the most sophisticated one. People actually burn electronics to extract very small pieces of metals, of precious metals, and conditions are devastating. You might have heard, or you've certainly heard of the islands of waste that are hidden underneath the water, or underwater, that we have in our oceans now. Some, they're called the gyres, and the North Pacific gyre, actually the biggest one that we know, is the size of Texas. That's a big island, a big pile of waste that is sitting underwater, that is just there, that cannot simply go on. It's already there. It's already there. That's also connected to the cost of treating waste. If you look at Japan, who is very populated, so there is no room for a landfill, for dumping waste. The cost of waste is already up to $1,000 per ton of waste. If you look at Brazil, for example, it's still $40 per ton of waste. That leads to the condition that we have had, which is it's easy to find a spot to just dump the waste. You find some this place out there where no one will see, and you just keep dumping, just keep landfilling waste until that issue or that problem becomes an issue. In Brazil, specifically, we have already reached that level. In 2010, we had a law that was approved. It's called the National Policy for Solid Waste that aimed at treating that question of waste. We could not simply afford to keep dumping waste into the landfills we had because they were already saturated. And I know that Panama has at least started some programs, that already has some laws in place. The municipality of Panama already has a 20-year program, Basura Cero, that started in 2015, that actually has some cool ideas, has some cool targets there, and hopefully will accomplish at least part of what Brazil and other developing or developed countries have been achieving so far. That's also connected to, this whole cost of treating waste also leads to the traffic of waste. So countries like Japan, as we said, it costs so much to treat the waste that they cannot only afford to treat it locally. They have to ship it elsewhere. So the bigger the bubble there, the bigger the amount of waste that leaves the country to a different country. So there are all those lines there are routes of waste circulating around the globe. So we actually ship. We have to ship waste. That's insane. Why not processing it locally? That's what actually leads to those islands that we've seen, because sometimes it's supposed to be shipped, but it ends up being thrown in the water, just cheaper. And I really don't want to be the one just, raising the sad message here, but it's only starting, because by 2050, we're estimating that we go from almost 7 billion people to 9 billion people. That's a 30% growth. Can we really afford to continue like that? If we already have that problem, if we already have those islands out there, if we already have, waste floating all over, can we really continue with that? And even worse, 98% of the growth will come from metropolitan areas in emerging markets. That's where we are. Let's zoom into Panama. Panama is the second largest generator of waste in Latin America, just behind Chile. So that's the amount of, or that's the impact that each Panamanian has in the amount of waste generated, in the amount of waste that's not treated. It's 1.2. Each one of you here that live in Panama, obviously, will or actually throw away 1.2 kilos of material per day. That's your daily impact. If you look at Brazil, what's the situation like right now? We throw away, incorrectly, 24 million tons of waste per year, still. With all the initiatives we have done, 24 million still go to the wrong place. 28% was the growth of waste generated in only 2 years, from 2012 to 2014. The World Cup and the Olympics brought a lot of development to the country, and that led to an economic growth. We're actually going through a tough situation now, but that's what happened. In only 2 years, we grew our generation of waste by almost 30%. And we estimate that what we put in landfills, that we throw away, that we don't recycle, is worth $3 billion. That's the amount of waste that is buried, that is underneath the earth now, that we could turn into revenue, that we could turn into jobs, that we could turn into money, basically. So what does it look like in Panama? Only 5% of waste right now in Panama is recycled. That's the official data from the government. When 70% could be recycled. Out of everything we throw away, 70% could be recycled. We only recycle 5%. So that shows the size of the gap, but also if you want to look at it from the positive perspective, the size of the opportunity that we have. We have this 65% of every 1.2 kilos that you generate that we could recycle every day. So if you think out of the 1.2 kilo you throw away every day, only 60 grams are recycled. That's very, very small. And even worse, we even need to fix the basics. 11%, and that's huge, 11% of waste is not even collected. That ends up in rivers, in ponds, in sand, streets. So it needs to start from there. And maybe not as big as Brazil, obviously with a 200 million population, but here you also already throw away almost $50 million US worth of material that ends up in landfills. That's just what ends up in landfills. We're not counting here the 11% that doesn't even hit the collection system. Imagine the impact that $50 million could have if we just managed to divert it from the wrong destination to the whole recycling logistics. When it comes to each one of you, what's your individual impact? Have you ever thought about it? You know, now it's 1.2 kilos, but let's go to some cool facts here. If you look at an average person who lives 75 years, and this data comes from Europe, so it's a little biased here, but let's see. You will eat, along your life, 13,000 eggs. It takes 3,300 liters of water to produce 1 kilo of egg. You will drink 5.6 thousand liters of beer. Some may drink more or less, I don't know. But it takes 75 liters of water to produce 1 glass of beer. And so on. We'll eat 15 pigs, 9,000 liters of milk, 5,000 apples, eat 4 cows, 74,000 cups of coffee, 1,200 chicken. We'll take 7,000 showers. Do your maths and you see, I think this is very conservative, maybe a little biased. We'll use 300 deodorants, 3,800 diapers. That's not only when we're kids, by the way. You may need them later. Almost 300 toothpaste tubes, 35 hair gel, soap bars, 200 shampoo bottles, 4,000 rolls of paper, toilet paper. We'll produce 8.5 tons of packaging. That's the amount of waste we're going to generate there. We'll spend 8 years watching TV. Again, some might spend more or less. In total, we'll generate 40 tons of waste, each one of us. That's our impact on Earth across our life. We already spend it already takes us 6 kilometers to reach, on average, globally, to reach drinkable water. That's the average that a person has to go to reach drinkable water. We are here, in this context, we are used to, maybe we have to walk 5-10 meters, that's it, but on average, 6 kilometers. And we've seen how much water it takes to support all that consumption that we're used to. We'll read 500 books, more or less. That's equivalent to 24 trees. And we're going to drive equivalent to a round trip to the moon, a longer life. So, I guess we all agree, it's a lot of waste. I'm sorry. It's a lot of waste for which we have to find a solution. When it comes to what solutions do we have, if you look from the most sustainable to the least sustainable solution, and I'm sorry if you have seen this already, but it's just a summary. The top 3 ones, reuse, upcycle, and recycle, are all circular solutions. So the waste becomes something else, becomes a material, becomes another product, that material becomes raw material for a new product, and so on. But the bottom 2 ones, incineration and landfill, that's a one-way solution. You burn it, you bury it, and that's it. You cannot recover the waste. That's those amounts of money that we've seen there. 3 billion in Brazil, 50 million here in Panama. Sorry. What do we do now, currently? We either incinerate it or we just landfill it. We bury it. So at the end, with all these facts we have seen here, with the high consumption that we have, that we cannot afford, we can no longer afford, and with the solutions that we currently have, we need to find a different model. We cannot simply go on with that. We could start by consuming less or decreasing the level of consumption that we have. First one, most sustainable, stop buying. But that's tough, right? It's really tough for us not to buy anything. There are actually companies that already promote that already advertise for trying to make you more conscious about that topic. You could buy used, you could buy more durable, you could buy consciously. As I said, there are companies already doing, if you know Patagonia jackets, they already advertise, don't buy this jacket, you really need it. Because we make jackets that are good, that should last longer. We don't want you to, to enter the fast fashion mode and really buy a jacket each year. We want to make something that is lasting for you. You have buy used, that you can buy used stuff. You have buy durable and consciously. At the end, when we look at recycling or recyclability, it's very simple math. It all starts with the market price. How much money can I make per kilo of waste or of product that I collect and that I want to sell? Then you deduct or you take out from that the cost of logistics and processing. That's the technology piece that some countries have more developed already, some countries don't even have. So if you take the price minus the cost, that equals the value of that waste, of that material. And at the end, if the value is positive, good, you recycle. If not, you don't recycle. You just throw away because it's cheaper. Looking at that simple equation, a few years ago, almost 15 years now ago, William McDonnell and Michael Braungart they basically looked at nature, what we just looked. How does that waste, or how does waste work in nature? And they simply copied, they just created a theory that copied what happens in nature, which is a closed loop. When you have here, let's see if I have here, when you have a product that leaves, as we said, like a leaf, a piece of tree, whatever, that once it's decomposed, will become a nutrient, will become raw material for a new product. Why not do that in our reality with materials that we know in industry? So he started the cradle-to-cradle concept, or which is now also known as a circular economy. As you have seen, all those circular solutions that we could focus, that are more sustainable than the ones we currently use, which is just burning or landfilling. Why not copy that and bring that to our reality? And that's how I came across the topic of waste. About 10 years ago, I met, this used to be my boss, the one with the white hat here, the white beanie. Mind you or not, that was my boss. And we met. He was a freshman at Princeton, and he had started a company called TerraCycle, and he invited me to start the same business in Brazil. So I started that business in 2008, and ran that business up until until I joined Hilti a couple of years ago, and then moved to Panama. So what Tom realized was, well, he had just started university, as I said, and he came across, we throw away, and I'm glad you haven't had lunch yet, because I know it's disgusting, but he realized university, or the university where he was already throwing away a lot of material, a lot of waste, and they were actually paying to get rid of it. And he asked, could I take that waste, not charge anything, you would just give that to me as raw material, because I want to do something with it. So he borrowed some money from dad, from friends, and he created nothing fancy, nothing very innovative, but he created a decomposing facility where he would just basically feed with the food that was left from the school canteen. He had African worms in the middle that are very hungry, that actually process waste or food very quickly, and actually good labor, no strikes, no benefits, nothing. It's the best labor you can get. And at the end, what he had was organic fertilizer. And he then, very ambitious, he said, I think I have just created something. I have created I can create world's first product fully made from waste. And I can sell that to Walmart. Why not? And he actually approached Walmart and said, I have this concept, I want to develop this product. I'm going to start collecting PET bottles all over the United States. I want to fill those bottles with the organic fertilizer that I'm generating here in my facility. It's a trial. Obviously want to improve that and increase that to the whole country. And I'm going to be using some runovers or triggers that he collected from the industry that were already there. They were already being thrown away. And he created the first TerraCycle plant food, which was the first product fully made from garbage, from waste. A few years later, that became what TerraCycle is right now. It's in 25 countries, including Brazil at that time where I was. It involves 50 million people collecting waste already. We've diverted 2.6 billion pieces of waste, so bottles or cups and all that, that would end up in landfills, would end up in rivers and oceans, as we saw, and now we have diverted and actually recycled that. Only in Brazil. So let's land here. Let's bring it closer to us. We managed to establish, when I joined from, as I said, from 2008, 2009, until the end, we had already established 8,000 collection points. Those were collection units that we had spread all over the country. Each dot that you see, actually, here's not even a dot, it's a big clustering of dots. Each dot represents one collection point that we had, or one collection station that we had in Brazil. Those places were schools, there were offices, there were households, there were hospitals that decided to collect waste that we collected through TerraCycle. The waste we collected there, just as a side note, was not the average waste that we know, or the already recyclable waste that we know, as PET bottles, as paper, as aluminum cans. Our purpose was to focus on what's currently not recycled. So toothpaste tubes, metallized packaging or tennis shoes, things that are more complex. Our offering was, let's find a solution for those, let's set up a collection system for that, and let's turn that into products. So we partnered with companies that generate that waste. We're actually sponsored by those companies because they realized Colgate could no longer sell their toothpaste or their toothbrush without the concern of this is not going to be recycled. They sell billions of items per year. They can simply not afford now to sell to a conscious consumer a product that doesn't have a solution. So they're craving for this. They're looking for this all over the globe, and we actually offered them that solution, and that worked for all those brands that are there just in Brazil. TerraCycle globally actually works with more than 150 companies now with those solutions. That's just a few pictures of the collection points that we had. People actually get very, very creative. They do some campaigns. They do some cool stuff around that collection unit, not just placing a bin there and waiting for people to bring material. They actually promote it in many different places. And when it comes to solution, as I said, we had a team of scientists that would look at waste from a very pragmatic aspect or dimension. What is waste? It basically has its composition, its features, and its intention. Composition is material. It's plastic, it's wood, what can I do with it? Features. What is the shape of that waste, of that piece of waste? What can I do with that? Can I turn that PET bottle into a cup or something like this? And its intention, again. To come up with solutions for very complex waste streams, like used chewing gums. So we developed the first, let's say, recipe for turning used chewing gums into plastic. And with that plastic, we created products that were sold in major retailers in the United States, and then that solution was actually developed in Brazil and imported to the United States. So we can create cool stuff here. We don't just need to rely on what Europe does, on what the United States does. We can actually develop cool stuff here. Why not? We even did dirty diapers. It's possible. We can turn that into plastics. Obviously, you wouldn't make a spoon with that, right? You would make like a school bench or something that doesn't really, you know what I mean. We promoted that and tried not to just to make new garbage or new waste. So our intention was not to make packaging become something else that you don't need. We tried to substitute or to change the raw material that would be used to create a school bench that a school would buy anyway. And why do you need to buy it from a raw material coming from oil? Why don't you buy it from a recycled source? And that's the idea that we had. All those products that we made over the past years were made with that purpose. And we had to promote it. When we saw here, or when I said earlier here, was we can bring technology, we can bring investments from outside, but it has to start with us. It has to start with people. And I remember maybe 15, 20 years ago in Brazil, it was very, very common to see people just throwing bottles. They were driving their car to just throw it. To just throw it. Not sure if it happens here, if you see that, but it happened a lot there. It doesn't happen now, to be honest, obviously, every now and then. But, if someone does it now, someone will honk the horn and say, what are you thinking? And that took time. That takes education. That takes a lot of effort to promote the idea of recycling, the idea of what can we do? What's the size of the problem? We've seen it. It's shocking. So promoting whatever initiative we do, promotion and spreading the word really takes a very important role if we want to make it happen. People need to be conscious about the dark side of it. And they really have to know what's the impact we're generating. They cannot just ignore it. They cannot just throw this away and I really don't care what happens later. No, they need to care. Because it's here. There is no out there. It's all here, right? So we promoted. We had PR, so we partnered with major newspapers. I used to write articles to one big newspaper in Brazil about the topic of sustainability and waste. Partnered with blogs. We were constantly invited by blogs that used to blog about recycling, sustainability, to add content, to share some of the experiences we were having. We even had our own TV show that aired on National Geographic for 2 years. It was called The Garbage Muggles, that also told a story around how to find a very dramatic waste that was out there no one wanted, and how to turn that into a cool product. And we also went very extreme. So with all those partners that we had, all those companies that we had, we even had our logo in their packaging. So a company that, let's pick Colgate, as we said, their toothpaste tube could not have a recycling logo because it was not recycled. There's simply no way, if relying on the local, on the municipality current system, that type of waste would be recycled. Simply not possible. With the system we had created with them, they could now claim that their product is 100% recycled through the system that TerraCycle has developed. So that's very powerful. From a brand perspective, that's very powerful. For us, consumers, great. We now have a solution for that waste. We can actually buy it. And obviously, for the government, even better, because they don't have to worry about that waste anymore. There is, the private sector, a company is actually paying for that because it's their own interest. So why not leverage that model? It's nothing, rocket science here, what we have seen. It's how do we take the different interests that people have, we as human beings, as people who love Panama, companies that are out there that need to sell their product, that worry about the consumption and the behavior that their consumers have, and the government that that has a big trouble, or they have a big trouble in their hands and they need to fix it. So just thinking of how to put it all together in order to not only decrease the amount of waste we generate, but how to, since it's out there, there is no way we can stop buying, as we said. Stop buying now and not generate. We're going to continue generating forever, but how do we make the best out of it? How do we create solutions for that will at least decrease the size of the problem? Some more examples here. As I said, it always starts, or it could always start with the private sector that has, it's their very own interest. It doesn't conflict with, should the government now focus on health? Should they now focus on, like roads, or should they now focus on recycling? The private sector has the right to decide what they want to do right away. So that's the model we approached. We actually partnered always with private companies that somehow led to a benefit to the government. But we didn't simply sit and wait for the government to come up with a solution. We created that solution. And that led to a few awards that TerraCycle won. After those more than 10 years now, always related to the innovative model that we created that started with that guy that you saw, collecting leftovers from university. If he could, honestly, anyone in this room could. He's very smart guy. I don't want to say that. He's a very smart guy. But with the manpower that we have in this room here, look around you. How many people that we have here that share the same concern, that share the same spirit? We want to change the world. We want to make this a better world, not only for ourselves, but for the next generations. We've seen there's 2 billion people coming. What world do we want to offer them? For us, it's already almost too late. Whatever is out there, the impact could be, significant, but the huge impact will be in the future. So we have to start now with education. And since we are where we are, education and really spreading the word of what we're doing is very important. So I'm not, as I said, I'm not an expert on what's happening in Panama yet. I've only been here for 4 months. I've had this very interesting journey in Brazil, working very closely with the United States. I went to Japan, to the Netherlands to also learn what they did. In my Master of Science, my dissertation was focused on the waste management models that were happening all over the globe. I reviewed more than 100 articles that really just address what models are out there. So I know, what happened in Japan, what happened in Europe, what happened in the United States, which also influenced a lot what we have in Brazil right now. So we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. We can always copy with pride. Why reinvent? Why not just look at what's out there and implement here? So what I would ask you is, as we are running out of time here, is let's work together. If there is anyone here who really sees that problem as I see, someone who really loves this country or the region where we are, Latin America, someone who is proud to be in this region and who fears what the future is going to look like, let's try to come up with solutions. We don't have to, as we said, think of rocket science to innovate that much, but working step by step, we can get there. We started with a recycle bin, or with a trash bin full of waste. That's how TerraCycle started. It now has 50 million people collecting waste all over the world. So I hope that's inspiring enough for you. And that story was interesting. I would like to suggest a few must-reads if you are into the topic. A few books here. I've placed at the bottom the Basura Zero. It's a 100 pages booklet from the municipality of Panama that explains what the government or what the council is planning to do in the next 20 years and what they're trying to accomplish. So whenever you have an idea around that, make sure it fits what the government is planning, because then you have a better fit. I see some people taking pictures. If you didn't manage to get a good picture, here is my email. Feel free to email me anytime. And thank you very much.